Okay, welcome back to IPHIS Basics, and I am joined today by Jenny Sauer, and I am Rudy Roselli, and we are covering how to create activities. This takes us to step 4 in our process. Remember, step 1 is create a location, create or review a location. Step 2 is create or review a workbook and assign the location. Step 3 is create the site for the location, create or review the site for the location. And finally, now we're here at step 4, creating activities. And remember, we want to, with data, the mantra is enter once, use many times. So you don't want to have to constantly create new locations if you're going to reuse the location, okay? Just reuse the location. Don't enter it in for a second time, okay? Or create a new site because you're going there for a second time. Enter once, use many times. And if you forget what a location is or define a location, just go back and to the other modules in either module 5 or module 7 for creating locations and sites, and module 6 is for how to create a workbook. So we're going to go ahead and log back into our IPHIS, and if you don't know how to log into the IPHIS, make sure that you go back to that module and review that module for logging into IPHIS or creating an account, whichever you may have to do. Once you log in, make sure that you know that you're in the correct office by looking in the upper right-hand corner. When we come in, we always end up on the home tab when we first log in. So we got to make that application sentence, you know. So Jenny, can you create the application sentence for this one? We're on step 4, creating activities. So what do you think the application sentence would be?
I want to create an activity.
There you
I
go.
mean, just
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. So you know you're working with activities. So what tab do we need to go to?
Activities.
Exactly. So here we go to the activities tab. And now we can see by clicking on the activities tab, we can see all of our varying submenus. So depending on what you want, which activity you want to work with, you select the appropriate activity. Now, this one defaulted and landed us on surveys. So, Jenny, how would we create a survey?
I think that's the right tab. This is a survey activity. And then I see a create button right next to activity. I would just tap that.
Exactly. Now, if you came into here and you didn't see the search filters, okay, all you have to do is check the box of search filters. Now, here's an application sentence for you, Jenny. I want to create a compliance agreement. So where do I go?
Okay, so we're in the right tab that's activities, and we know we're in that
Mhm.
because it's green. And then I would choose compliance agreement next to survey.
Oh my
Yep.
God, you're becoming an expert, Jenny. Holy Moses, you know exactly where to go in order to create a compliance agreement. And that's how easy it is to do it. All you have to do is click on that sub menu for activity to create a compliance agreement. And once you click on that compliance agreement, it will bring up all of the compliance agreements that you have. Jenny, how could I filter out for a specific compliance agreement? What would I do?
Well, there is display search filters, which is a box that's not ticked. And if you tick that, I bet you it would give you some search filters.
Exactly. That's how we could search in order to find a particular compliance agreement. Let's say I just wanted something that started with home. We're looking for Home Depot or anything that has the word home in it or a location name. Here you go. These are all the compliance agreements with Home Depot with the word home in it. That's how easy it is to filter it. Jenny, how would I create a compliance agreement?
I think you would use that blue button create right next to the title compliance agreement.
Exactly. That's all you'd have to do is click on the create button. Now, compliance agreements can be somewhat complicated, so make sure you check with your supervisor before creating compliance agreements. And the same thing with surveys. Make sure you check with your supervisor or other inspectors or other officers before you just go off creating them. There may be a particular way to do that. Jenny, I think I got to create since I've created my compliance agreement, now I need to be able to create the compliance agreement inspection.
There happens to be a tab right next to it. So you know it's an activities. And then
Mhm.
right next to it, we've got compliance agreement inspection. And I'm going to bet, yes, there it is. There's a blue create button for compliance agreement inspection.
And that's all there is to it. So creating any kind of activity is really easy in the IPHIS. All you have to do is know which activity you want to create, go to the activity tab and select that activity, and then you can create that particular activity. Keep this in mind. You cannot create a compliance agreement inspection unless you have a compliance agreement. If you want to search for something, you have to display the search filters, because if you don't enter anything to search, you can't search for anything that you want. Okay? That easy. This is module 8A. And if you remember from module 8, what we learned how to do on the basic side is to create how to create the activity. Just make sure that you look in the upper right hand corner for your name. It should be you, it shouldn't be some generic person, and make sure that you're in the correct office. And today we're working in the Shasta County office for California. Once you're in there, you're going to start off on the home page. Remember, when you get to the home page, take a quick look down here in system announcements and see if there's anything going on that you need to be aware of, such as a programming update. Jenny, when I say to you, we're going to work on activities, and we want to work on surveys, and we want to create a survey, tell me, what tabs and steps should I take?
Well, I can tell we're on the home tab because it's green, and we're going to work on an activity. So I want that activity tab 2 over. Yep.
Know that we're on the activities tab because
it's green.
Exactly. You got to pay attention to that green thingy there.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
and
what?
then the activity we're going to perform is a survey. And so I see survey as that first tab under activities. So that's selected in gray, and then we want to create one. So I'm looking at that create blue button to start off.
And that's exactly correct. That's exactly how we do this. Okay. It's that simple. Now, with surveys, in the previous module, we showed you how to get to this point. Specifically with surveys, when you get to surveys, and even with compliance agreement and compliance agreement inspection, remember our 4 steps that we talked about. Because right now we are on step 4 of our steps. Remember, IPHIS is easy. It takes 4 steps. You create your location, assign it to a workbook, create your site, and now we're on step 4, which is creating the activity. And with the activity, which in this particular case, it's surveys, we've created the activity, but now we need to populate the site that we're working with. Since we already did step 1 and 3, where we created the location, step 2, we assigned it to a workbook, step 3, we created the site. Now what we need to be able to do is associate that location and site with an activity, and in this case, it's going to be a survey. So here we are, we're going to look up our location. In this case, it's a farm supply company. Now you can type in a portion of the name of the location, and it will still come up. So in this case, the name of the place is Farm Supply AG, but I'm just going to type in the word farm and see what comes up. So I typed in farm, and we got a whole bunch of different locations in here. And make sure that you notice, look at the location office. This is why it's important to pay attention to your office and see which offices are here. So you need to pay attention to that, because there could be a lot of different places that are named in a similar manner that were created by a different office. So you can narrow down what you're looking for by putting in a more explicit name in there, and you can let it go. Now, the thing about IPHIS in any application, especially when it comes to data, you need to be patient. You need to allow the application to do its thing and find what it's looking for. Take your time, and see, here we go. It found it. Now, I can also make it faster in the search if I fill in more information. So in this case, I provided a full name, I have the state. You can fill in the county, and the city, and it will render faster. So the more information you put into the system, the faster it's going to render what you're looking for. Now, in this case, we found our location. This works. And now what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to select a specific site. where are you placing this survey activity? And in this case, this particular location has got 3 sites. And this office was very smart to identify what the sites are. Now, this is for Capra beetle. In this case, they're placing that trap on one of these 3 different sites. And this site, we're going to place it on the back wall. So we're going to choose the back wall, and now we need to be able to choose the appropriate template. And in this case, we're doing Capra beetle detection. So you need to know the program that you're working with. Each of the programs are really different. You can see up here, ACP in California, they have a whole different bunch of templates. Now in the advanced courses for the IPHIS, you can learn how to create the template that suits your needs. But in this case, we're just doing general detection, and this template was set up at the national level so that everybody could be able to use it. And we're just doing a simple detection survey. So once you're done with that and we have all of our information filled in here, this is our location name. I got a location ID. We know what site it is, and they're using particular code in here to identify their 1 mile grid system and subgrid, and also explicitly where on the location they are. And in this case, it's the back wall, and it's the very first post in the back wall. So then here we go ahead on the right-hand side, we click on continue. It's going to bring up the survey form. Now on the survey form at the very top, it identifies the program, the location name, gives the address, what template you're working with, what's the site, and what's the site number. The rest of this is pretty much boilerplate. On every survey, you're always going to have a date, and it will always default to today's date. So if you're putting in information for previous months, weeks, or whatever, if you're putting in the entire year, or you want to enter it for an entire year, you would have to go back and choose whatever the appropriate date is. Fun trick about this is that once I put a date in, I can also modify that field just by typing in the field. So if I wanted to go back a year, if I wanted to change the month, whatever the case may be, I can make whatever changes that I want without having to scroll back and forth using the drop down here. Okay, so it could make it easier on yourself, so you can choose any date and then go in and modify it. It's a little easier. All right, once you do that, now there are 3 different types of surveys that we do when it comes to surveys. There's sampling, trapping, and visual. So for example, if I choose visual, under visual, I get these options for an activity action. What if I change this to sampling? These are the options. Now notice there's only 2 here, which is collect sample and inaccessible. But when we take a look at visual, there are 5 options. And with those 5 options, you would choose whichever one works best for you. So you have to know what information you're working with in order to select the appropriate thing. And this is why it's important for you to talk with your supervisor, so that your supervisor or another more skilled inspector can help give you what information you need to fill in for whatever activity you're doing. So trapping has got the most actions, and you can see these are all the different actions for trapping. Every office has its own definition for how these activities are defined. It's not standardized across the board because not every place is exactly the same. Most of these work for most offices. So you can see in here how we have everything from install, remove, release, recover, whatever it is. We also have a relocate, install, relocate, remove. So it just depends on how your office defines these different things. So in this case, we're installing a trap. We're going to install that trap, and then we're going to identify that trap. This is step 4A, which is assign the tool identifier. And this works with trapping, so you know what trap you're actually tracking. Because remember, it's the trap that we're tracking in a specific site in a particular location. And that's why we do steps 1 through 3 first. So in here, you would go ahead and enter in whatever the trap number is that you want to use, that's the trap that they're tracking. Now, the tracking number is different from the actual trap, the physical trap itself. So you can have a tracking number and you can have the physical trap. Now, if you need to replace the physical trap, that each trap has a barcode on it, and that's what you send into the laboratory. They're going to track the physical trap based off the barcode on the physical trap. But what you're tracking as an inspector is this tool identifier or this trap number, so that you know what activities has taken place with that trap number. Once you've done that, you're going to fill in the rest of this by choosing what the host is. For Capra Beetle, it's going to be not applicable because we're placing it on the wall, and it's the trap that's actually the host itself. The tool is going to be the Capra Beetle wall mount trap for Capra Beetle, and then the lure name is going to be the wheat germ pheromone. And if there's any other symptoms that may be applied in here, if they show up here, make sure that you actually click on it. And I'm going to demonstrate that here in just a second and why you have to do it. Any comments that you might want to place in there, you could say initial trap placement. Put whatever you want in there, whatever the protocol is, whatever your office prefers that you place in there if you need to place a comment. The publish level, again, check with your supervisor, check with the other inspectors. In this case, it'll be the county level. The pest status, it is not found. And then notice here how target pest already has something in there. Now, just like here in symptoms, notice that there's nothing. But down here with target pest, there is something. But unless you actually click on the actual pest itself or the listed item, it doesn't count. If there were 2 or 3 of them in there, you still have to select one of them. So make sure that you click on it so that way the system knows that you're actually choosing it. And then once you're done, make sure you go back up through and double check your work, make sure that everything is correct. And once you do that, and then you can come over here and click on save. And that's how easy it is to be able to create an activity, which is a survey, and in this case for Capra Beetle. We're talking about how to create a compliance agreement, and this should be fun because IPHIS is fun. So here we go. You're going to start off here on the home tab, and we know that we're on the home tab. Why, Jenny?
Because it's green.
Because it's green, we know exactly where we're at because we're on the home tab. And make sure that when you come in here, take a quick look down here in the lower left-hand corner for system announcements. Make sure that nothing funky is going on with the system. It could be down, it could be up, there could be problems with the database, and it would be better if you come back at a later time in order to do anything. So here we go. We're going to create our computer application sentence. We want to create an activity that is a compliance agreement. What do I do in order to create an activity that is a compliance agreement?
Well, Rudy, I'd say 2 tabs to the right of home is activities. And when we select that, it will turn green. And then underneath there, we have another ribbon. And the second one over is compliance agreement. I would select that one. And then we have a blue button, create, under compliance agreement. And I would select create. That's what I want to do.
That's exactly how we do that. Once we've done that, now we need to know which program we're working with. And in this case, for what we're creating is we're going to create a receiver compliance agreement. Now, this is for a place that is receiving a shipment from a particular location. And in here, there's a template. In California, we call it shipment receiver. So we select that particular template, and then we click on continue. Once you click continue, just like in surveys, and remember what our 4 steps are. Our 4 steps are create the location, assign it to a workbook, create the site, and now we're creating that activity. And in this case, what we're doing, since we've already created the location, now we're going to go find that location where what we're working with. In this case, we want to be able to create a compliance agreement for a place that's receiving shipments from California. In this case, the location is not in California, it's someplace else. So make sure that you pay attention to which state you're working in. If I'm looking for a place in California, make sure that you choose California. So we're looking for a place that's in Arizona, and the name field here, we're going to enter the name field. Now you have to be careful because the name field is case sensitive. So if I just type in home for Home Depot and I go and search, I'm not going to find anything. It's going to come up blank. These locations are done with a capital, so we're going to search for it. And here is Home Depot. And we have a whole bunch of them, whole bunch of different ones in here. Since we created it, now we can go find it. So we click on the plus sign, and that's what's going to give us the location. Now, with compliance agreements, they are with locations. And remember our definitions, as we talked about so far as the lexicon of words. And if you forget what those are, look in the description below, and you'll be able to find those lexicon of words. And the way we define location is one contiguous piece of land. In this case, we're creating a compliance agreement with a particular store, okay? And that store is going to be Home Depot in Yuma, and you can see the location ID that's there, and it fills in all the information. Notice here that it has the address. That's because we filled in that location information from previously. If you are working with the USDA and you're a USDA employee, you would have your information here under PPQ official. But if you're a county or the state level, you're going to fill in the information down here for the state level information, okay? Then you're going to go in here and place any comments, and then you're going to choose a published level, and I usually choose just the county level for publishing. There is a small twist with this, and in this case, the Home Depot in Yuma is the one that is receiving the information, but the place that's actually doing the shipping that we actually have under compliance is here in California. So the name of that place is going to be Heinz Growers. That's in California. So I'm going to change the agreement name, and then I'm going to fill in the correct address for the establishment in California that's actually under compliance. Make sure you choose the right county, and that's how easy it is to do that. Now we can go ahead and take a look at this. We can export this out to Form 519 and just know where you're saving it in your computer. Make sure you give it a name and you go ahead and save it. And now you can see what the Form 519 looks like. Now, even though this location is here in Yuma, that's the place where it's being shipped, you can see because I changed the name and mailing address, this is the one that's actually under compliance, as you can see here. Zoom in here a little bit. Again, the place where we're shipping it to is here in Arizona, but the place that's actually under compliance is here in California. And because we chose the appropriate template, it filled in the remainder of the information so far as regulated articles, quarantines of regulation, and then in this case, they agreed to the following, which is receiving location for shipment. This place is actually receiving the shipment that's coming to them, and then the rest of the information gets filled in here, filling in blanks. You can save this as your PDF file, and this becomes the compliance agreement that's in there. Once you've created the compliance agreement, you can then go ahead and save that compliance agreement, and it will be in the system for you. And that's how easy it is to create a compliance agreement. You can create a compliance agreement for an establishment that's within your state, that's nearby, and for a place that you're going to go and do inspections on a regular basis. You can also create a compliance agreement for another location that may be receiving a shipment from a local establishment where you still do the inspection, you seal up the truck, and then you ship it off to that next place. And when you do that, you make it possible so that you can track the information using compliance agreement inspections. And we're going to see that in the next section. In this section, we're talking about compliance agreement inspections. Jenny, you know the funny part about compliance agreement inspections? You can't create a compliance agreement inspections unless you have what, Jenny?
Probably a compliance agreement.
Exactly correct. You'd be surprised how many people don't exactly know that. They just, I got an inspection, I need to put it in, and they
What
haven't
are you
created a compliance.
inspecting?
Yeah, exactly. Or more specifically, where are you inspecting? So we are going to sign into the IPHIS, and once you sign into the IPHIS, remember, check your name, make sure that that's who you are, make sure you're in the correct office, and also make sure that you look down here in system announcements. Here we are in the home tab, and we're going to create that computer application sentence again, because remember, 90% of the answers that you want are on the screen in front of you. You just have to know how to ask the question. And the question we're asking today is, I want to create an activity that is a compliance agreement inspection. So Jenny, where would we go?
Well, Rudy, it looks like right now we're on the home tab because that one is green, and 2 tabs over I see activities. So I would select activities, and then underneath activities, we've got compliance agreement inspection, and I would choose that tab, which then should give me, yep, there it is, a blue create button.
Exactly. And that's all there is to it to create it. Now, just like in the previous modules for surveys and for compliance agreements, we have to have a location. We have to have a place where we can do the activity. And location is step 1 in our IPHIS data creation steps. So remember, working in IPHIS is really easy, and it takes 4 simple steps, and these are the 4 steps. And that's creating a location, create a work, and then assign it to a workbook. You're going to create a site, and then you're going to create your activity. So you have to know all of these things. That tool identifier is in compliance agreements is a compliance agreement number, and that gets auto-populated for you. So you make sure that you look at that and observe what it is when you get in there. We've created our compliance agreement, and this is the first step in creating that compliance agreement inspection. Again, compliance agreement inspection, and you can see that up here where we have to select that location and site. So we click on the populate location and site, and we know the name of our location. Make sure that you are in the correct state for the location that you're looking for, okay? Because that will make a difference. And in this case, it's Heinz Growers. It's in California, and we're going to go do a screenhouse inspection there. Here it is. There's the site. So that we select the site and click on the plus sign, and that will give us our location and our site number, all right? And this is going to be a regulatory screenhouse inspection. This is a template that we're using. And then we click on continue. Once we click on continue, now we have our form. Now, everything on the top portion here is boilerplate. It's just like working with surveys, the same type of information, what template we're working with, what location we're working on, and observe that you have the location and the address. Now, if you did not put in the address in, if you did not put a good address in when you created the location, you're obviously not going to have a good address here, because remember, with data, enter once, use many times. And then here you can see the compliance agreement number. This is like the trap ID or the tool identifier. It's very similar, but in this case, it automatically fills it in for you. Then we have our completion date, and notice here, anything, just like with locations when we created it and other parts within the application, anything with the red asterisk is a required field. We're going to create our inspection, and then we're going to create our activity method. In this case, it's visual. And then our activity action for what we're doing is, this is a screenhouse inspection, so we're going to inspect. And then our inspection status, what was the result of the inspection status? Now, I've gotten a lot of questions about this particular one. Usually it's just pass or revoke or suspend, and most people understand that. And the question is, what the heck does deviate 1, deviate 2, deviate 3 mean? Well, depending on where you are, again, check with your supervisors. Make sure you check with your supervisors or check with the other inspectors. But what deviate 1, deviate 2, deviate 3 means is, if you go there and you're doing an inspection, and let's say that there is something wrong, in this case, a screenhouse, let's say part of the wall got sliced open because of a storm, and you get there and essentially they're failing that particular test, but they can get it fixed. It's going to be later on that day, and it may take some time. So then in order for you to come back, you could just say they deviated once from the protocol, because that should have been fixed as soon as the tear happened. Okay, so they're fixing it, but hey, at that moment they deviated from the compliance agreement, and it's kind of like 3 strikes and you're out. So that's how come they have the deviate 1, deviate 2, deviate 3. Now that protocol is different everywhere you go. There is not, I have not yet found a standard on it. Okay, but usually it's either usually passed or revoked or suspended, and establishments don't like that. Usually they'll fix whatever the issue is right on the spot, and they'll get to it so that they don't get any strikes against them. Okay, so in this case, we're going to say that they passed. Inspection status remarks. So if they passed, then you can say that they were in compliance. Okay, that it's in compliance, and then you're going to publish it at the county level and place any comments in there. They did a good job, or whatever other comments that you might want to make in there. It's up to you how you want to do that. So look on your inspection sheet. Again, talk with your supervisor or talk with other inspectors and see what they put in there. Now, these areas are what they call custom attributes. Now, this is not going to be on every single compliance agreement inspection. This is going to be based on the template that was created for you to use. Okay, and again, at this point, you would talk with your supervisor or other inspectors if you need to create something new. That's in a more advanced class on how to create other templates for different types of inspections that you may be doing. In this case, we're using this for a screenhouse inspection, and these are all custom attributes that were created by this particular office. So then you go in there and then you just select the appropriate items, whatever it may be, and then you're good to go. When you get done with filling out all of the appropriate areas within the compliance agreement inspection, all you got to do is click on save. That's all there is to it.
How do you locate it for editing?
Okay, and that's a good question. So you're coming back into the IPHIS. Let's take a look at the IPHIS. You're looking at the IPHIS, and we came in and we're again on the home tab. We know that because it's green. And don't forget, take that quick look down here in the system announcement to see if anything funky is going on. The computer application question is, we want to work with an activity that's a compliance agreement inspection, so we can find an existing compliance agreement inspection so we can edit it. You're going to walk me through this, right?
Okay, we want to
Go
go to
ahead.
the activities tab. You're right on it, and then it should turn green. And then we want compliance agreement inspection. And then we have the display search filters ticked. That box is ticked with a checkbox. So now we can search.
Yeah, exactly. You can just go in and type in the date range that you're looking for that particular inspection. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and look back to 2020, because in hindsight, everything is 2020, and we realize that we have to edit something, and then we can find, it'll give us a bunch of results for that time frame, and then we can go in here and see the edit column. The edit column's right here. Find a little clipboard, just like on all the other screens within the IPHIS. Just go ahead and click on that little clipboard, and then you can come in here and make whatever adjustments that you want to.